Hey, you guys, it's MJ from Alta Love. How are you? I am actually unlisted right now, just to stay focused. Some mornings I either have like a little bit of limited time frame or I just want to go unlisted basically. So today's share, I'm playing around with the title of these sort of daily live shares as far as like the collective intuition. So it's like my own inner teacher, my own inner guidance, having been on this spiritual awakening journey or path for most of my adult life since leaving home. So, talking about it in different ways and how it feels and what it looks like and potentially how it looks on a global level, I think is relevant and useful for people, valuable for people as they awaken because it can feel so destabilizing and also um, well, yeah, it can just feel so alienated and frightening and weird. And there can be a lot of pitfalls as far as like rabbit holes that we get into, increasingly so, especially with YouTube and the way in which we're kind of programmed to prioritize distraction. And by that, really, I mean just incessant consumption as a way of being rather than a more balanced way of being, which honors silence and creativity and relaxation and social engagement and intimacy, all as part of a balanced life. And you can imagine that in our balanced state is a relaxed state and is a state of ease and flow. And this is ultimately the optimal state for human potential to be achieved in such a way. And of course, that it's different for everybody how we find our flow and or feel into the signature essence that we are, and then making that manifest in the world and showing up in that form and that desired state of being truly is our service to one another, breaking out of those chains and those shackles from our systematic upbringing, i.e., the enslavement upbringing and or the disempowered upbringing is sort of what we're breaking out of. So, how do we do that? Well, we either consciously pioneer change by choosing to change, i.e., we we sell a house, end a relationship, start a new course. Um, we pioneer that very consciously, or we have shakeups. So I've created a title, Shakeups and Breakups. So, and we've all experienced that. It's just seems par for the course in this life that there's pain, there's wounds, experiences that we seem to go over. And I truly believe it does awaken us to greater power when we're able to process the emotional density or the pain that we're in. So ultimately, those densities from within our field, certainly if you resonate with these types of channels, then you're, you know, transforming ages of oppression, divide and conquer, blame and attack, just oppression as separation energy, your separation energy as oppression. So we can transform that pain from within us. So learning how to transform pain versus holding on to it or stifling it, suppressing it, denying it, um, is what creates this transformational, radiant well-being path. This radiant joy and health path is ultimately through an ability to acknowledge pain as part of a truthful and integral and abundant life, and then just dealing with it as and when, rather than perpetually kind of denying it and ending up creating suffering on the planet. So we really are facing and moving into a phase where more of the collective, i.e., more humans on the planet, are genuinely desiring to move into this greater harmony. The reality for many is that they're just unaware and or totally like cognitive dissonance when it comes to like this kind of stuff because it's pretty out there, right? So what I was saying there was that like either we bring it on. So like I'm somebody who's like I never had to wait around for change. It was pretty quick that the intuition would kind of pipe up, and I'd last 2 months doing a thing that I knew wasn't right. However, the toxic patterning, the reason I talk about patterns in the Fearless Life Guide is that having had these awakenings quite early on and then living in denial of the intuition caused great suffering patterns. It caused toxicity patterns in codependent relationships, which ended really badly, right? And then in my world, out of unconscious patterning via these wounds of unworthiness. So really our, some of our most painful experiences and some of our most kind of toxic relationships are often our most uh, profound teachers. So if we are aware and awake, and then we go back to denying the intuition, that's when the patterns are destructive, and they get worse and worse and worse until we just can't bear it anymore. So the increase and the perpetuation of acute suffering in our lives is ultimately also what squeezes us off, and then other people and other apparently out of our control situations also make manifest shakeups and breakups, right? Typically we don't fall in love intending to break up with somebody, or we don't go in, we don't start a business intending for it to all come crashing down. And yet, depending on where we are in our path, and depending on how fixed we are in our center point and or that kind of alignment point, is sort of dictating to us how we receive those lessons. And I think I mentioned in yesterday's share, there's with these shakeups and breakups, there's going to be an increasing, again, dark night of the soul, or like an ego death for a lot of people, just because they've been attaching their sense of self onto aspects of the reality which aren't stable. They're not ultimately real and or reflective of that human's kind of creative field. And this is what we're having to face now more fully as a collective, and obviously with individuals in their lives, is what's not real, what's not created in stability in a real foundation. And that foundation ultimately isn't the false system, it's not the false economy, it's not giving our power to world leaders. It has everything to do with the inner stability that we contain. And so how firmly rooted are you in your knowingness? How deeply grounded are you into your connection of the earth and earth's natural bioresonance field? And I'm not saying that I am. It's just, but I've related to you guys like this ushering in this call to be more in nature, to be more outside. And even coming to London for my interviews and to drop my friend off at the airport, like you can feel the hive mind. You can feel the siphoning forces of metropolis and cities, of how the energies, and then the hive mind rat race is like everyone's in these grid cities, just like vacant and void, and or just exhausted. And that's something as well for the empath. It's like, oh, because it's, yeah, people are tired. I'm looking around at people mostly my age on the tube last night, just and it got me, right? Because it's like they would have had this specific lovely girl that I was looking at would have probably had like a full day at work, i.e., 8 to 10 hours, and she was wearing her gym get up. So I'm thinking, and the reason I resonated was like I remember that it reminded me of like the amount of pressure I would put on myself, and just how effing busy I was. And it made me think about how, wow, we really, like, from a young age we get programmed to be worker bees. We get like, sit down, shut up, do what you're told, and then be busy. And the more you can achieve, the more likely it is you're going to acquire stuff, and you're going to be important in the world, right? And so we like put like, God, we'll wake up, go for a run, and then have, we'd have what, our 8 hour 6 hour day of school, whatever it was, and there would be, lunchtime. Instead of having lunch, it'd be like drama club, and then after school there'd be like 2 or 3 different activities, and then the gym, and then dance, and then you come home and you do your homework, and then you're like, go to bed, and you do it all. So like, and like, you're so young, and you just get programmed into that, right? And so a lot of us were living these lives where we had to, for whatever reason, we chose to be shown that imprint. We chose to be shown the enslavement imprint, the systematic human hive mind imprint. And yet, for whatever reason, a whole bunch of us, we knew intuitively, it's like, I'm gonna die, I'm gonna be able to survive. There's more for us. There's more just potential for humanity as a species on this planet. And so this paradigm shift is like the intuition's guidance to stabilize and anchor in a stronger foundation that serves the whole, that allows everybody to win, that allows everybody to be here. It completely wipes out the old paradigm of separation and division, because it's so false. It's such a false construct. It has no roots here, right? So the roots of that old reality are already gone. They're already out, and so there's a lot of just smoke and mirrors type of energy as far as destabilizing new paradigm activity. It's not effective whatsoever. So yeah, my heart just is with anyone going through the shakeups and the breakups right now. It's kind of been consistent for a lot of us for the last kind of even couple of years. It's just been kind of, certainly for me, as when I took the leap to publish the book and venture into online entrepreneurship, it's just been like perpetual ego deaths and a lot of lessons in humility and grace. Um, and then just sheer determination ultimately as well to just kind of keep going, because these new paradigm activities are unique. And I, even though there's a lot of formulaic evidence to sort of show us and guide us, that's really wonderful. But in my kind of intuitive experience, that by the time you get to the finish line, you got to be yourself. Like, you got to figure it, you got to have pioneered it in earnest and in honesty from the self. Otherwise it's control domination, it's not manifestation, right? Otherwise we're just manipulating people, otherwise we're just going back to the old. So pioneering movements like All to Love or Thrive or New Earth Project, it really is an integrity. And then this came in, and I didn't really put it in the title, but um shakeups and breakups. So this, a lot of this stuff, even though it's like, um the reason, part of the reason it's happening is that we are really being asked to, like, know the self. So knowing the self, being like heart, like being totally in your unity, like, this is who I am, that power, I am that, and knowing your heart vision and knowing your resonance, so that you're like attracting the tribe more, you're attracting resonant minds more, you're attracting that energy even more, so that as individuated aspects, i.e., sovereign and free beings, from this greater sense of integrity, we then work together. So we are, so a lot of us who've been on this individuation and or manifestation path for like really like these last 7 years. So that that inevitable transformation, a lot of those cycles of transformation will kind of be finished. Example for me is like no longer being a yoga teacher as a career, and then a shape shifting career path as a company director, an online entrepreneur, an author, and that in so many ways that began in 2012. I started vlogging in 2012. I started writing again in 2012. And yet you can see how these they're like, they cross over, because back then you didn't have direction, right? So there's a lot more direction coming through for us. And yet, because of the lessons we've learned, there's less of a need or desire to anchor in a plan, to stay fixated in our expectation, because we've learned enough to realize that the expectation uh, is weirdly potentially a slowing down, especially if there's a rigidity around how, attachment to outcome, rather. There, we want to have a positive expectation, certainly, but not a controlling, like, this is exactly how it's going to happen for me. So yeah, the shakeups and the breakups are ultimately about us finding ourselves. so annoying, isn't it? Especially when we're in the heartache and or we're just like and or we attach so much of our future onto somebody's believing in us or onto somebody's desire for us or something. We place so much there, and then, someone makes a different decision, somebody doesn't want that, or somebody chooses other people or whatever, and you kind of you're it's just miraculous, isn't it? Life is just miraculous. So yeah, shakeups and breakups are ultimately helping us to like unify the self, which we become more whole beings, more effective everythings. And then from that place, then we're kind of relearning how to interact and work as a team, work collaboratively, work in open dialogue. Now, of course, you can see that that sets the tone for our ability to have discussions and conversations and to better learn in ourselves just how to hold space for one another, which is really just being presence, which is, it's like just radiating divine love for people rather than thinking we know what's right for everybody or thinking we know we're right at all. We just want to be love for each other. That's kind of it. And a lot of people, they want to control that for some reason. That's been my direct experience, or people kind of lying to my face to keep me there, or telling me, you're not allowed to be free. You're no, no, you're responsible for that person. You're not happy. And like these are more recent. These are things coming out of my own vortexual reality within the last just couple of years. People coming out of the woodwork, i.e., ending, closing off cycles, people coming back after 6 years and saying, oh, well, you're off the hook now. And I think, well, yeah, I let that go like 6 years ago, right? Or people coming out and actually kind of confessing, like, yeah, I did deny you. Yeah, I did cut you out. And I'm like, yeah, I'm aware. And still there's a lot of the kind of empathic energy rising into this sovereignty, right? So the empath are the light worker empath. These are the souls that are ultimately breaking free right now to lead the way. And a lot of that has to do with cutting out narcissistic abuse, i.e., breaking free from toxic family patterns, breaking free from the people who manipulate us and try to control us, breaking free from in any way. Doesn't matter how nice they are. It doesn't matter what if they're our family member. The point is that we all are all family. That's the kind of illusion of systematic family, is that we all live in these little families and then all have these games between other families in our neighborhood, right? Like Susie Joe down the road just got rollerblades, so whatever, right? We compete, we contrast, we compare. And especially in these sort of middle upper class people, they do all their dinner parties and all their garden parties and da 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 da, and pretend to be this wonderful community when really they only help each other. And send a bit of cash charity to like the lowly peasant folk or like the poor children. And I'm not talking everybody, but I'm talking about a very specific, um I want to say kind of like that dominant narcissistic imprint of that self-absorption, for whatever reason, that privileged entitlement of what this is. I like my mom always told me I was special, or like not that as much, because like we are special, but it's more this entitled, like, what, it's mine, I want it, I get to have it, and I'll do like, and I get to do whatever, so it doesn't matter. So, like, I don't care if children in Africa are starving. So, I don't care if it's destroying the planet. So, I don't care, like, if I shouldn't be doing that. I want you to do it. So, who cares if you're my slave? It's just this total, like, carelessness for our connectivity and recklessness and denial. It's the fucking denial that is the most painful thing ultimately, because we're all, it's like running around, and this is perhaps part of this great awakening and the shift. It's the denial that can't be denied anymore, and that's why shakeups and breakups, that's, these things out of our control will continue to happen to more and more people to usher this awakening. leading into our global financial reset and leading into a pretty dynamic uh, destabilization of the kind of old paradigm power structure, um, and then more congregation and new tribal constellations around the world in new paradigm energy frequencies. This is what's been happening over the decades ultimately, is like a linking of new energy, and then that's been kind of inviting these greater shifts that are happening and continuing to happen. So happy Uranus and Taurus, you guys. I'm pretty chuffed about that myself. I don't know about you guys. I'm feeling kind of grounded and expectant for really positive changes, and at the same time, like kind of intense holding space for the energies on the ground on this planet, because it's just there's a lot of like just almost like this feeling of the calm before the storm. So I'm getting that a lot, which I can only kind of pin into like being in the unknown, and also just which also highlights to me that mass confusion. And it's not necessarily spoken about. You know, a lot of people still aren't able to be honest or vulnerable about where they're at. But again, with our refining empathic abilities, it's like you can just feel the insecurity mounting, you can feel the confusion mounting, the desperation mounting, the exhaustion mounting. And of course, with that is pressure, and pressure builds until things burst, i.e., lids pop off. And that's just par for the course in this awakening game, is that our if we're not if the energy in us isn't freely flowing, you know, if we can't be honest with ourselves, if we're not able to really, you know, express the truth of our being, then, you know, shakeups and breakups, the universe will force it upon us. So it'll be really interesting to see how it all unfolds. Um, you guys, I love you guys. Again, I went unlisted, but you know that there's mega heart love vibration here for you. I I'm feeling guided right now just to mention I appreciate when you share these videos, and also some of you guys know already I do online coaching. Online coaching is £100, but I'm a pretty like open person. If you're earnest and you're seeking and you're really wanting to work on this spiritual awakening and transformational stuff, I'd be happy to negotiate a rate with you. Um, that's feasible for both of us. So yeah, coaching through the spiritual awakening stuff, if you resonate with the energy that I output, it's likely that you'll resonate in a coaching exchange. Also, if that's not your vibe, then go ahead and check out Alta Love's online courses, Zenful Zero Waste, Spirituality Simplified. I'm in production for Vegan Love, and our final release is Unplug for Freedom. So all of these courses help people access kind of higher consciousness, and then in alignment with the love movement, it's all about being the change. So direct action in your daily life that can help you align and become more aware. Oh yeah, and buy the book. That's about it, you guys. Thank you so much for stopping in. I appreciate you. I love you. I hope that was useful. Have a great day. Peace.